Thank you, Claire, for my introduction, GrainCorp for my scholarship, and my Nuffield family. Whilst everyone else is trying to keep you awake after lunch, I'm going to lean into the soporific feelings of the room and tell you a bedtime story. Gemini, can you tell a bedtime story of a girl studying an Australian Nuffield Scholarship, travelling the world looking at artificial intelligence in grain farms? Once upon a time, her mum began, a brilliant young farmer from a place not unlike your own, named Treen, embarked on a grand adventure. Treen had won a Nuffield Scholarship, a golden ticket that allowed her to travel the world searching for new wisdom to bring back to her homeland. I will now take over the story and share my real-world journey, not the AI-generated one that's been trained with my Facebook data and my Nuffield media releases. So what is AI? This kind of feels redundant given the world I've been living in of late, but I must remember that only 2 years ago, AI in agriculture would have had the livestock cohort of this room discussing artificial insemination. But it's 2025, and there's a new AI acronym, which came to the fore in late 2022, as large language models, or as many of you have heard of them, ChatGPT. In essence, LLMs are a way to use the internet as an extended random access memory for your computer. And prompting via questions allows you to interrogate the world's data. So why have I studied AI? Initially, my interest was sparked reading Small magazine to my 9-year-old in 2020, and here there was an article looking at using cameras to monitor biodiversity in the Netherlands, and had ag potential, but was unrealised. Next, in 2023, at the Nuffield Triennial, we visited Aeronavics. Here they were autonomously identifying and spraying wildling pines with drones in the mountains of New Zealand. But it raised a question. Why, with so much potential, particularly, it seemed, for agriculture, was no one talking about AI in ag, when it's potentially the most transformative technology for the next 10 years and maybe my lifetime? Here is a glimpse of where we're at. AI is one of the fastest globing innovations to be adopted. It's not taking 50 years for technology to reach rural areas, as was in the case for electricity and the telephone. It's here now. Low orbit satellites, connectivity, and relatively cheap data are allowing exponential adoption of this new tool, and it's happening nearly everywhere and at the same time. As of last week, AI education is mandatory in all Chinese primary and secondary schools, giving us an idea of where they see it as in its importance for the next generation. It's not all like this, though, as the data is indicating that Australian agriculture is lagging in its uptake and education around this upheaval. So let's do a pulse check of the room as a segment of agriculture. Who's used a large language model for a query? Good. Who uses it every day? Finally, I'll leave you to ponder if yes to the above, are you developing a leadership culture to enable and encourage it in your business? So let's go on a journey and let me bring you up to a speed on where I think the critical parts of the AI discussion are largely don't get mentioned in the marketing material of AI. I've travelled 163,000 kilometres, visited 24 countries and 82 cities since being awarded my scholarship. I've seen a lot. But don't let me leave you thinking that this has been easy. The tech culture is highly secretive and not particularly suited to Nuffield face-to-face meetings and open discussion and frank discourse. Most of it's online, which is the preferred medium. Tech people don't often have offices. Every business thinks it has its own edge, and individuals have limited ability to discuss the detail. Today I'm going to cover a number of key points, well, 2 key points, being security and open source. The topic is very large. So one of my most enlightening insights was the potential impact of AI was from Ezekiel McReynolds. I was introduced to Ezekiel when he was speaking at the 2025 AI and Agriculture Conference in the US that I attended remotely in April at 2 a.m. Fast forward to August, I followed this up with one of the elusive face-to-face meetings, and Ezekiel's message was clear. We have a major challenge to secure our farms against hackers and ransomware in the age of AI. There are 4 types of ransoms often associated with a distributed denial of service. Nation-states that wish to capture data quietly for their own benefit, nation-states financing their country, hacktivists, and individuals seeking the hacking thrill. He introduced me to the world of botnets. And I know I've started with jargon, but what is a botnet? A botnet is a group of devices that have been infected by malware and have come under the control of a malicious actor. These may sit dormant in our web-connected devices and sensors for years until they accumulated on the dark web, black market, sold off, and then able to be remotely controlled or ransomed with the owner unaware that they were even compromised. Anything that is connected to the internet is a target. Imagine loss of control of your irrigation systems in a week of extreme temperatures, or someone moving your virtual fence to incorporate the local highway. There are currently constant attacks on water and energy infrastructure. Agriculture is a likely target, as it's a key part of the time-critical food production and distribution systems. And add to this, we're not always popular with the activist crowd. Attacks may not be confined to stationary systems, and there's a potential with botnets to hijack a swarm of drones or other mobile equipment to cause havoc. So it could be as simple as changing a code in an algorithm from true to false, this being the difference between spraying a weed or spraying a whole crop. An example of this is this AI-generated video of a future paddock, where drones are launching, scouting, and then docking back on your irrigator. This could be a level of detail we've never had before in our systems, but alternatively, if weaponised, could cause significant disruption to production, operations, or the public. So let's be cautious with any optimism in the AI space, but don't despair. There are some simple prevention methods. The basics in security will do most of the heavy lifting, as it's the easiest entry points will be targeted first. Industry will need to work collectively, either as a cooperative or potentially with government, to develop lower-cost cybersecurity plans for our businesses. Expediting this recent decision in the UK, where they're in the process of making it illegal to pay a ransom, which should have alarm bells ringing everywhere in the audit and risk committees and management teams. If this is to become the global standard, protection of our systems is more critical than ever, as a ransom event could be your business's last event. So Australia is an innovative place, and agriculture is no exception. But where are we in regards to the newest tools in AI? Granted, globally, they're probably still at the Model T flawed end of the technology learning curve, but where could it take us? Will it advance us beyond the monocropping paradigm with the ability for scalable, higher resolution management? Or will it just mean that we have green-on-green sprayer that can work in a broadacre setting, as opposed to the current technology I saw, like Ecobotics, which has green-on-green spraying but will only cover 4 hectares an hour with 6 by 6 centimetre application resolution at the moment. Still wonderful, but not suitable for all applications. Another solution that resonated me came from the One Health project in Denmark. The importance of open source data was championed by Dr. Guy Coleman, who is now part of that project. Guy's doing some wonderful work and research on how our Australian ryegrass plants are mimicking wheat plants within 2 years of green-on-green spraying. They lose their basal reddening and they become more prostrate. That's the way they use to avoid detection. Against biology, none of our AI solutions will be complete, which is why we need to keep innovating. He's also continued to work on his open weed locator, or OWL, which can be built as a home, replicated, and rolled out on farm, with easily replaceable products that can be sourced and fixed by users. The wonderful thing about open source is potential to lift up our technical literacy as farmers, encouraging curiosity, agency, and choice on how the technology works in our businesses. This open source world is populated with our data, which is also shared on platforms such as Plant Village, or for training models, or GitHub. If we don't begin to share data, we will risk issues with models being trained on synthetic data, which is cheaper, faster, and is developed with AI for AI to learn on. Sorry, this sounds like a circular reference, and it is. Look up the Ouroboros, typo, sorry, effect with models collapse due to being trained on too much synthetic data. How's this changed me? I've realised Nuffield and AI is a journey and not a destination today. I've realised I can do hard things and bring others along for the adventure, sometimes only 5 metres from the top of the mountain, but it's enough. I've also gained confidence to ask the hard questions and back my knowledge and experience. What's next? I need to write my report, digest the last few months of travel and see what technology is fit for purpose and finish building my hour with Henry. I'd like to thank my hosts. There's a number: Sonka Rabe, Guy Coleman, Ben Peterson, Uwe Rabe, Blank Vince, Harry Winslet, Martin Chavaz, Tori Gorman, Lauren Benoit, Rick Hornbury, Melody Levinsky, Cliff and Sue Tacky, who helped organise my visits. Thank you to all the Nuffields that encouraged me to apply. Barb Madden, 14 years ago, for encouraging partners to be involved in the Nuffield, even if it's involved changing my career, putting a child in daycare, and travelling with a 2-year-old for 10 weeks. Kebby and Watson for keeping the show rolling and picking up the slack. Thank you, team. My Sydney support team, Chilton's, Glides and Charlotte, for everything they do in our lives. How the Nuffield links get closer, with Georgie Sharman, daughter of Stu Sharman from 2012, who travelled with Mark on his GFP, now looking after my daughter Peg in boarding school. My sponsor, GrainCorp, thank you. The grains industry for their investment in me over the years. My parents, Jim and Janelle Watson, 3 Nuffielders support over 16 years. They deserve every praise for encouraging us to find our own paths and supporting us through it all. Finally, Mark, Peggy and Henry, they have started boarding school without a mum, given up on sporting opportunities, maintained a GFP pace for 6 to 10 weeks on the road, but also embraced the opportunities of meeting people, asking questions, and setting up their own international Nuffield kids group. And we're all very patient. Mark, thank you for your support. It's been unwavering. Thank you for living our wedding song lyrics. If you want to take the world on, I will, right there beside you. You're my biggest supporter. To finish my story, I'll leave you with Gemini's ending to bedtime. Treen, the little girl yawned, her eyes heavy but full of dreams. She pictured intelligent tractors rolling through Park's fields and tiny robots weeding her family crops. As sleep pulled her into its soft embrace, she knew her own Nuffield journey would one day be just as exciting, bringing her discoveries home to the whispering wheat fields of Australia. Thank you for listening.